A Tale from a Tosher by Charles Robertson. In this book, I tell the tale of my last ever toshing, a journey that shall haunt myself until the day of my death, which seems nigh as of now that I write. There are, however, 3 tales prior to the one I wish to speak of that I have discovered through my own personal investigating, a quest to find answers to that which no man fears not to know, for they would lead to what events transpired in the sewers of London that dreadful day. I know not of the exact chronology, and so shall list them in order of how well I know of the tales. The first tale, of the Queen Rat. Of the Queen Rat, I, like presumably all Toshers, many of those who know Toshers, and even many who so happen to live near the Thames, where she seems to be most oft spotted in her lady form, that is, know plenty of the legend of the Queen Rat, but of this precise tale I knew not until after I had escaped the maze of tunnels, having been told varying versions of the stories in pieces from many that were there in the pub. The black rat's bite, apparently a dated colloquialism for a severe morning sickness one has only when they drink themselves to blindness. As one supposedly oft assumes, rats had come out and nibbled their eyes as they slept. That night, the night before his and I's last toshing. What stays consistent across all variations creates a tale as follows. Phillips, at 52, being the youngest of a gang of 4, had become the target of a beauteous and young brunette with pretty hazel eyes that some claimed would shine in the darkness. She was no older than 23, with some insisting as young as 17, with a petite hourglass frame, and was rather well endowed. She was also said to have thrown herself so heavily handed at Phillips, some thought her a lady of the night, but no whore was she, for she rejected another gentleman that did offer money for a good time, slapping his face pink for an insinuation which caused some drunken laughs across the pub. Rather, she seemed to have a genuine and great desire to be with Phillips for the night, using body and talk as a charm of persuasion, and she seemed queerly interested in his work as a tosher. Later into the night, after much of talking and drinking and dancing, she led him out back into an alley beside the pub, and he had his way with her. Those within hearing heard her great moans of pleasure. What followed next is obscure in its details, but what is known is that he began to shout at her, for she had bitten at his neck suddenly and without warning, and drawn blood. That is, of course, a well-known ritual of the Queen Rat to perform onto her lovers, as she is pleased by their sexual performance and ensures good luck as well as safety from the bite of sewer rats. But, in the moment, it is understandable Phillips would think less of the lore of the Queen Rat and more of how some drunken lass had bitten him like she were a vampiric whore, and so his subsequent actions would offend her, which, of course, is a certain way for a tosher to be cursed with bad luck. Some claim that he had smacked her in return for this biting. Some say kicked at her while she lay on the floor. One even said that he had strangled her with a tight grasp, only letting her go to avoid murder. But many had said that it was only some shouting in unpleasant words at her and naught else. Having known Phillips, albeit only for a short duration, I'm inclined to believe the latter variation to be the truth, as he was always a man of harsh barks and weak bites. Only one claims to have seen aught of what happened after the argument, a regular drunkard of the pub that agrees Philip did not harm the woman, which does bring me to be more inclined to believe him. His claim is that, after the shouting, the woman said calmly but loudly, "Luck shall be with you, sewer hunter, but for your unkindness a great price shall be indebted to me," before suddenly vanishing and reappearing as a rat of great size, no less than 3 foot and a tail no less than 2, the man had claimed, and scurried away, presumably to the sewers. Of this great rat, we never saw her in the sewers, neither as a lady nor a rodent. However, I believe it to be indisputable that she held a great influence over what happened, the curse she laid upon Phillips, dooming the 4 of the gang to an unwholesome affair, to say the least. The second tale of the sewer swine. Some 9 or 10 months ere the 4 of us entered the sewers for our final time, I am told a farmer had been lost a pig of his in the streets of London. As it wandered freely with no general direction, it was suddenly startled by the barking and growling of a large dog and chased toward the Thames. The owner of said dog, whom I was successful in finding, had managed to find his dog again. Its name was Gerald, and swears by it that no pig was to be seen when he found Gerald, nor was there any blood on or around Gerald's teeth and snout, meaning the dog had not killed the pig, making it likely that this pig, having survived but not to have been seen after the chase, that it could have entered the sewers. Of course, for the tale to not contradict my own, as I find it unlikely that pigs running into the sewers of London to be a common occurrence, the pig must have indeed been both female and pregnant, birthing a litter which matured and inbred with one another as well as their mother pig. This I conclude from the number being too great to have all from one litter, and the drift of pigs grew violent beyond reason. Perhaps from a constant state of anxiousness stemmed from their lightless environment, perhaps from a need to survive, as I imagine they otherwise would have been devoured by swarms of larger than normal rats that I have seen feast upon the flesh of living men, or perhaps a combination of both, along with any other reasons for them to have developed what overly aggressive personas they had when I encountered them. All that I know from the swine of the sewers is mostly guesswork to fill in the gaps of what little verifiable knowledge I possess, though I do believe this to be the most probable version of the tale, and I pray that they were all burned away that day, and that all which survived were the same sex and unpregnant, leaving the drift to fade out of existence, so no unfortunate souls may have to come face to face with their wrath. The third tale of the Times Vampire. There had once been ongoing tales of strange bites being found on those that have slept by the Times, many drunkards possibly explaining how so few did not awake during the biting. For some weeks ere my final toshing, bite marks that I myself had witnessed on 2 occasions when heading to the sewers. The first, 1 week prior, was a drunkard to no surprise, lying in such a deep sleep that at first I thought he was dead. It was because of queer markings on his neck that I took an interest, and so I shook him, and he did wake, in quite a foul mood, shouting curses for being bothersome to the rest, swinging a lazy fist at nothing as some attempt of a threat. And so I left without fulfilling my intent of asking of the marks. The second occasion was 3 days after the first, the same day Phillips had joined our gang, bringing our number from 3 to 4, 4 days prior to my tale. A dog, not Gerald. Gerald was black, and this dog, whose name still remains a mystery to me, was a shade of golden hair so light that it seemed almost but not quite white, had some red on its neck. The dog let me pet it, and gave no snarls or snaps as I curiously fingered his hairs away from the wound to look upon it. And I remarked to no one in particular how similar the queer marks on this dog's neck were to the ones that I had seen on the drunkard some days earlier. The vampire did that. A man nearby muttered, "It lurks by the times in the day, waiting for the night when we all sleep, then it comes out and feeds on us." The man was of no use when I pushed him for information, making me view this talk of a vampire a nonsensical, in spite of how insistent he was of it being so. I do now, however, know that this tale was not entirely false, with the exception that what creature I saw was no vampire. Rather, what I saw was a winged demon, which, while vampiric in its drinking of blood, was of a far greater evil.